Hey all, and welcome to the Providence Performing Arts Center Professional Development Series for Educators, and lighting video number 1. In this video, and the subsequent videos to follow, we will dive into the dynamic world of lighting design for theater, and cover some of the very basic practices that are considered the foundation of theatrical lighting, and fast. In this video, we will talk about the power of lighting as a tool in the theater, a quick look at the psychology of color theory, and how you can use that to your advantage, then looking at some of the major differences between incandescents and LEDs, and why that matters to you. And finally, we'll talk briefly about the science of color mixing light, and some tips and tricks in a way that'll make it easy for you to use as you start to figure out what is possible on your upcoming production. Of all the types of design for theater, lighting is probably the least tangible and the least able to be easily grasped. And yet, lighting can also be one of the most effective tools for emotional enhancement of the action on stage, for guiding and controlling what the audience looks at, and overall just gives everyone the ability to see. Visibility, that is the most basic function of lighting in theater. Visibility is always the first thing to consider. Can the audience see what is happening on stage? Visibility is so important that it can literally affect the audience's ability to hear the dialogue on stage. Even though we don't all realize it, everyone reads lips, even just a little bit. But when we don't understand what someone is saying, reading their lips often fills in the gaps in our understanding, and not being able to see the movement of those lips, i.e. because of a lack of visibility, may really affect your audience's chance to get the story. So I reiterate the importance of visibility as our number one goal. Light itself is a natural guide that draws the human eye, built into our instincts, one that motivates us to look, give attention, like a moth drawn to, well, light. If I were to, see, that flash took your focus, and then slowly as you regain your awareness, you work your way back to me. And usually, while bigger is better and more is magical, with lighting, sometimes it's the very simplest moments that are most effective. One major goal of lighting is making sure you have enough lights, or instruments as they're referred to in theater, to cover anything you might need in a production, but only using the ones that are specifically involved in enhancing the story in each moment. Like a painter diving into a masterpiece, each instrument reimagines the world as each beam of light becomes its own stroke on the canvas. While an ever-complex field, lighting can be the icing on the cake that brings a production to life. Enhancing and guiding an audience's emotional reaction to the story relies heavily on lighting, but more specifically, color itself. Color is an incredibly powerful tool that allows you to help the world of the play and guide the audience on an emotional journey alongside the characters on stage. Whether it's the fury and passion of red, the serenity and peace of blue, or the healthful vibrance of green, color can play an intricate role in shaping our emotions. In reality, color theory influences you far more than you may realize. Marketing teams have been using color for years to make you hungry, or encourage sustainability and clean energy, or to promote trust in their brand. Colors can be used to tell us when to stop, or go, or just yield or look out for each other. They can tell us whether something is healthy or sickly, or even rotten. It's believed that upwards of 90% of snap judgments are based on color alone, which makes it all the more important to consider the implications of color even further. For instance, red can be used to create positive reactions, such as feelings of energy, courage, attention, excitement, even passion. But, on the other hand, they can bring feelings of anger and frustration, danger, and even hatred. Red is also often associated with making you hungry naturally, which makes it incredibly popular among restaurants and fast food chains. Blue, on the other hand, is known to suppress hunger. So while you might find it used in a healthcare organization or a security system, it won't often be found where food is sold. Beyond your stomach, blue can be used to create feelings of peace, serenity, trust, and even dependability. Like red, though, blue can also have extreme negative implications, like cold, seclusion, loss, sadness. And remembering the opposite sides to each coin is important when shaping a story. Green is another color often associated with safety or stability, but also creates a feeling of reliability and new life, growth. But don't forget, green can also be associated with feelings of jealousy, envy, and greed. In particular, green is an interesting color because unlike many other colors of light, when green light hits human skin, it often gives it a sickly or gross feeling, quickly making you forget any positive aspects associated. So it's always important to consider what your lights are hitting as well. If this topic really interests you, there are tons of resources on the internet and in bookstores to help you understand how color affects an audience's interpretation. One could spend years diving into the finer points of color theory, but before you dive into a doctorate in color theory, this video is meant to simplify your life a bit. So here's one easy rule that will help you greatly, but can also throw everything off. And that is a person's connotation of color, or their personal interpretation. Everyone is different. Everyone has different experiences with color. Many have favorite colors, many have least favorite colors. Personal reaction throws off everything, but you can also use your personal reaction to guide your design. Your personal reaction can help lead the way. So while you may never get everyone on board with exactly what you're feeling, let your instincts guide you as you shape the world that the characters live in. Never try to force a feeling on your audience. Help them feel what you already feel. Colors have a strong effect on our interpretation of the world, and while they can be used to enhance or fight natural reactions to things happening on stage, either can work to your advantage in bringing focus to the story. One of the easiest ways to push color is with LED lighting, which is becoming more and more common and inexpensive. LED lighting is different than incandescent lighting in many ways and has some incredible advantages, but also some important disadvantages to consider when working in theater. Let's start with the classic first. Incandescent lights are often what we think of when we think of traditional lighting on stage, or even traditional lighting in the home. Incandescent lights have many advantages, like they create warm glow on the skin, can be reliably dimmed from off to on and back again without flickering, and are relatively easy to find, which can make them affordable for that reason. On the other hand, incandescent lights burn way hotter than LED lights, and can often raise the temperature on stage and in your audience when used in excess. Theatrical lights specifically also use lots of power to do that, and so they are far from green efficient. So, the brighter the incandescent light, the more energy used, the hotter it burns, which is all important to consider when you're working on a budget. LEDs, on the other hand, use far less electricity and burn far cooler than their incandescent friends. LEDs can also be incredibly bright, but not from burning massive amounts of energy, but by simply multiplying the number of low-power diodes, or the LED bulbs, and still pull far less energy than an incandescent. In comparison to a standard 100-watt bulb, theatrical incandescents often pull 500 to 1,000 watts of power, and sometimes even up to 2,000 watts of power, which is like 20 100-watt light bulbs all on at once. On the other hand, to get a similar brightness of a 100-watt bulb, LEDs often use maybe 15 or 25 watts of power to get that same 100-watt brightness. So, basically, LEDs burn far cooler and use far less power, but can easily match an incandescent's brightness. Finally, colors. The most basic LEDs come with red, blue, and green diodes that can be used to mix any color of the rainbow, supposedly. Higher-end lights include white light and amber and more for bonus color mixing, but more on that soon. So what's the downside to LEDs? Well, since LEDs burn at a different temperature than incandescents, the quality of light they produce is often awkward or uncomfortable on human skin. I've personally never figured out exactly why this is, but the unnatural quality of light looks just that on human skin. Unnatural. Another major issue, especially with inexpensive LEDs, is popping on. Because they require so little power to use, often when trying to fade the light from the off position to the on position, LEDs will pop on. This little pop is the amount of light created by the absolute lowest amount of energy that your supply will give and can be hard to avoid, and can ruin a slow fade on stage. Now, there are definitely clever ways to get around that issue, but we'll talk more about that in video 5, where we will work to incorporate weaknesses of the equipment into positive tools for storytelling. The main tip I can give you that has served me well over the years is to use incandescent light for face light, or the light that is used to illuminate the actors from the audience's perspective, and then use LEDs for back or side or top light to add a colorful glow or rim light to the characters on stage. The LED rim light becomes incredibly versatile and helps create dynamic looks, while the incandescent gives us the warmth that radiates from the human skin naturally and allows us the chance to see the figures that we have carved out in color. And speaking of color, again, the final thing we're going to talk about in this video is mixing color for lighting, which can be really cool, interesting, and sometimes confusing road to travel. When thinking of color mixing in theater, we can break it down into two simple types: additive and subtractive. Before we dive into color mixing though, we need to take a quick science/rock and roll detour to talk about light in its most natural form first. The good news, what we refer to as white light already contains everything you need to make every color of light you want. Mostly because white light is a perfect combination of every color of light in the spectrum evenly. The easiest reference that I've come to appreciate is the iconic prism from one of my favorite albums. That one shot defines light perfectly, showing that we get different colors of light by breaking white light up into its different parts. Here, through a prism, but more commonly in theater, we do this with a theatrical gel, or what is basically a plastic light filter to pull out every color of white light except the color we want left. By simply taking a theatrical gel of any color and placing it in front of any light, we are able to essentially turn the light that color. This is referred to as subtractive color mixing. We are quite literally subtracting excess colors from the white light to shape the light that we see into an exact tint or shade of whatever color we like. Gels come in a number of varieties and colors and from a number of different companies to create a number of different effects. But again, we will go into more detail in video 3 when talking more about how we use your limited budget most effectively. Fortunately though, white light is created naturally from things like the sun, incandescent bulbs, and even LEDs. As a matter of fact, we can actually break light into its primary specific colors for lighting, similar to what we think of when we think of paints or pigments of color. However, while the primary colors of pigment that we learned in kindergarten are red, blue, and yellow, the primary colors of light are red, blue, and green. Similar to pigment though, we can actually mix the individual primary colors of light to get our secondary colors of light. Red and blue blend evenly to make magenta. Blue and green blend evenly to make cyan. And red and green mix together to create, that's right, yellow. It sounds weird, but it's true. Take away some of the green and you get orange. It is through this blending of primary colors of light that we are able to create new shades of light, or even build to white light. Remember how we mentioned earlier LEDs come with a red, blue, and green diode to mix with? That is why. And this is the second form of color mixing, referred to as additive color mixing. This can be fun, but tricky at the same time. For instance, if you wanted to create a rainbow magical effect on stage, and combine all the colors of the rainbow together on one spot, you will definitely end up not with a rainbow, but more likely a muddled version of white light. So just keep additive color mixing in mind when working with lighting on stage. It can definitely be used to your advantage, but can also cause unexpected reactions if not thought fully through. So when working with incandescents, we will often use gel to change the color of the light, which is often permanent for that production as it can't be switched out mid-show. LEDs, on the other hand, often include those different colored diodes for color mixing, making them far more versatile in the moment. But again, more on that in video 3. That, however, about covers it for this video. Let's do a quick summary of what we went over so far. Number 1, lighting can be a powerful tool in helping shape the world of the play, as well as enhancing emotional reactions to the play. Number 2, visibility is always the number 1 goal of lighting design. We have to see what's on stage. Number 3, while it's important to have enough lights to cover your needs, often in the moment, less is more with lighting. Number 4, incandescents are great for face light and visibility. LEDs are great for rim light and effects. Number 5, incandescents use gel to change color subtractively, and LEDs use individual diodes of primary colors of light to mix additively. Number 6, trust your personal instincts when considering color usage on stage and in lighting in general. Pretend you are in the audience and you should be able to tell what looks good and what does not. Fix what does not. Number 7, never force a feeling on the audience. Work to push existing feelings further. And finally, number 8, always work to help tell the story with your team. Hopefully these ideas will get you thinking and brainstorming as you start to figure out what is possible on your upcoming production. I look forward to seeing you in the next video where we will talk about some of the basic principles of lighting for any stage on any budget. A special thank you to the Walt Disney Company for supporting this professional development series through the Disney Musicals and Schools Reignite grant. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.